What the? Wait, but what are they doing? What is this? Whoa, what the hell? Wait, what is this? What the hell?
Where do we get a mouse from?
Wait, what are you doing to this guy?
My name's Frankie, and I'm getting arrested today protesting Elon Musk. Bought his way into office. He bought his way into heading a government agency. He bought his power at the expense of the American people, at the expense of our environment, at the expense of our world, and all of the people in it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. Boy, do I love watching these Marxists, these Antifa thugs get arrested for protests. Over the weekend in New York City, these thugs thought they were going to vandalize and destroy one of Elon Musk's Tesla stores. Folks, in case you haven't realized, Mayor Eric Adams is on our side now. He's on the side of law, order, truth, justice, in the American way. We're not going to put up with your nonsense anymore. Your days of burning cities down and doing destruction, shutting down college campuses, it's over. It's over. It's not going to be tolerated anymore. So you go out there and you make an ass of yourself, make a fool of yourself. You get on camera, you get your little clip. Congratulations. Send it to your parents because they failed. You guys are total losers. That's how you fight back. You destroy other people's property. You burn down things. You break windows. Congratulations. You guys are absolute losers. Folks, before we get into some news today, if you're joining us on video and you watch us each and every day on video on this podcast, I ask that you join us on YouTube. We're now broadcasting on YouTube. You can follow us at The Great America Show, at The Great America Show. We'll be active in the chat. Our producers will be feeding me through the questions and any concerns that you guys have through the YouTube comments. So we appreciate you guys joining us there each and every night. Same time, 6 p.m. On YouTube at The Great America Show. So Tesla is not the only Elon Musk-owned company being attacked. This afternoon, X, formerly known Twitter, was attacked. Elon Musk says either by a foreign government or a large group of organized people. So why are they going after Elon Musk? What's their beef with Musk? You heard that Marxist lunatic there saying Elon Musk is an unelected bureaucrat. Well, he's not acting like it. He's just doing a good job. He wants to cut spending. He wants to cut the federal deficit. Why are you mad at him? What's your beef? Are people not supposed to be billionaires, a self-made billionaire, and you're supposed to hate on him? We're supposed to hate this man for whatever reason that your sick, demented, jealous mind tells you we are? I don't think so, folks. As I said, these Marxists are losing, and they're losing at a rapid pace. Speaking of losers, Washington, D.C., you folks may remember when they installed that big Black Lives Matter street painting outside the White House, just for President Trump to look out the window and see. Well, guess what? It's actually being dismantled as we speak and painted over. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, apparently very nervous about losing federal funding. She says, it's okay. You guys can dismantle it. Time for it to go. Also doing the Lord's work, Tulsi Gabbard, revoking the security clearances for those 51 spies who lied. Remember the Hunter Biden laptop, folks? Those 51 intel chiefs who said it was Russian disinformation. This is now, of course, in addition to what President Trump did last month when he revoked Secretary Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Biden's deputy AG Lisa Monaco, the corrupt prosecutor Andrew Weissman, the deep state lawyer Mark Zaid, and Norm Eisen, the man behind all the lawfare against President Trump, in addition to those 51 being revoked. Also, we got to keep continuing to give credit where credit's due. Marco Rubio has declared that the USAID audit is complete. And the vast majority of the foreign aid programs are now going to be axed, canceling 83% of formal USAID contracts. So great on Marco Rubio, great on this administration who are doing an absolutely terrific job. Folks, I want to take today's episode to talk about something that's probably on all of your minds. It's on my mind. It's on the American people's mind. And it's this economy and where it's going. A lot of us are looking at our 401ks, our IRAs, our stock portfolios, and we're getting a little nervous that they're taking a little bit of a dive. And, you know, there's a few catalysts, a few reasons why this market is in a tiny little bit of a tailspin. So I want to dedicate today's episode and go into deep dive on what exactly is going on, how long we could expect it to go on. So I've asked the CEO of the Lonski Group, John Lonski, to join us today to break it all down, to maybe ease some of our fears and let us know where we are and when we could expect things to change for the better or for even the worse. John, it's great to have you back with us on the Great America Show. I want to start with, first of all, you're the only person I wanted to talk to today or for the last week or so with what's going on right now. From the left, you hear we're going down the wrong path. This country is going down the drain. It's the Trump dump or whatever they're calling it, the Trump economy. It's going down the drain. From the right, you're hearing, just relax. Wait a minute. It's only been a few weeks. It's not something that's been a long time. President Trump said this was all coming. Your thoughts on where this economy is right now in the stock market that's got people trembling?
Well, first quarter real GDP may contract outright, but the contraction that we're likely to get for first quarter real GDP right now appears to be mostly the consequence of a one-time, non-recurring surge by imports. And the surge by imports was largely the consequence of companies bringing forward their imports before tariffs took effect. If you look at the rest of GDP, if you take out the trade balance, you will still find growth, though again, growth may not be much greater than 1%, but the economy is still growing. The labor market is still expanding. We've yet to see a jump by the unemployment rate. We've yet to see a stalling of jobs growth. And so it's a little bit too early to state with any type of conviction that recession is here or that recession will necessarily, without a doubt, strike the U.S. economy in the second quarter.
You had mentioned jobs growth. I think the only fall off in jobs we're going to see, John, and we're going to talk about this, is government jobs and those that are start slashing. You mentioned something that nobody's talking about. The mainstream media doesn't talk about it, John. The brilliant people on the left don't talk about it. The people on the right don't talk about it. And that part of this market slump is that spending is going to be drastically cut. And you've seen it across the board where Elon Musk is finding billions and billions of dollars of wasteful spending that's, used to going into the government each and every year for the past, however many years since JFK created USAID. We'll start with just that one alone. What effect do you believe that's having on the market versus the tariffs?
It is having a profound effect on the market, the forthcoming cutbacks in government spending, if, of course, the courts allow these cutbacks to take place as currently scheduled. That remains to be seen. But what we have taking place right now is a tightening of fiscal policy, if you like. Not only do we have potential cutbacks in government spending arriving fairly soon, we also have what serves as a tax hike, and that would be the imposition of tariffs. So when you take into account the combination of higher tariffs, reduced government spending, you get a tighter fiscal policy. But wait, I'm not finished. Remember, monetary policy still remains comparatively restrictive. So restrictive monetary policy, a tighter fiscal policy, that tells us that we will be looking at economic growth that may come in for a while under the trend rate of growth, which is about 2%.
What have we been growing at for the audience for the last 4 years?
2.8% last year. But, I think you touched upon an important point, John, and that is the decent growth that, now above trend growth that we had in 2024. A lot of the credit goes to an unsustainable rate of government spending.
Right.
It's not only just government spending as expressed in the GDP accounts. We also have hidden types of government spending. Healthcare spending was the strongest component of consumer spending last year. It's one of the leaders in terms of jobs creation over the past 12 months. And in fact, you get this, only 14% of all jobs are found in what's called healthcare and social services. And yet that 14% of outstanding jobs supplied 45%, nearly half of the jobs created during the 12 months ended February 2025. That's not healthy. I can't call that indicative of a strong job market. You don't like to see jobs creation so badly lopsided. So you're looking at a much slower rate of jobs growth and a much slower rate of economic growth if you take out healthcare, you take out government spending, and there's one more. There's all of that support that construction spending on manufacturing facilities, specifically manufacturing facilities related to the production of electric vehicles and batteries, as well as microchips. That too is another example of where unsustainable government support artificially inflated the numbers for 2024's GDP. But that's coming to an end. Thank goodness Trump is bringing a stop to this nonsense. And eventually this is going to help narrow the budget deficit, shrink the budget deficit. And if we get a smaller budget deficit, we're going to be looking at significantly lower interest rates.
Right.
And that's going to be a godsend for the still troubled housing sector.
To me, it sounds like you're on board where I am. It's the long game. It's not the short game. John, for the first time, I think in my lifetime, and people can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but going back as long as I remember, the government has been the largest employer in the country of citizens, who are living in this country. I think close behind them is Walmart. I think for the first time in my lifetime, John, we may finally see the private sector, and that's the way it should be, John. We're a capitalist society. In no world should the government be the largest employer of citizens of this country. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is not a socialist economy. My goodness, this is a capitalist economy. And I think when we have an extension of Trump's tax cuts from 2017, and I think perhaps even more importantly, when we see more in terms of deregulation, when we get rid of all these silly mandates related to green energy, no electric stoves, all electric vehicles by 2035, 2050, whatever it is, this economy is going to be better off. But, it's of the utmost importance that we move forward with deregulation as quickly as possible, especially as it relates to the labor market, so that we can quickly take these people that have lost their jobs in government or government-funded jobs and put them into more productive occupations in the private sector. Yeah, manufacturing will stage a comeback. That will do better. And I think there's other areas that have a good deal of room for growth.
John, you worked for a corporation for most of your life. I won't say the name because we're not going to give them any credit. You're the CEO of the Lonski Group now. But you worked in the private sector almost your life for a very, very important company, probably the top company, financial services and credit rating agency. And your time there, John, in the private sector is not your own boss. Did you ever see a time where the CEO said to you or your boss said to you, you need to stop cutting. You need to cut spending. You need to stop cutting jobs. You need to me, it's like these Democrats, John, and the mainstream media are going absolutely berserk that Elon Musk is finding he's going through our tax records. He's going through this. He's going through that. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Well, you know what? If anything, the private citizen, John, should be happy because we're probably going to get less audits throughout the IRS. But in what world, John, should people be angry that this man wants to cut the damn deficit that we've been living under for the last 20-something years?
Well, if you were a federal government employee, or if your job depended upon federal contracts, and you were supremely confident about job security, given the fact that you have a nearly $2 trillion federal budget deficit, this confidence would reflect either stupidity or insanity on your part. You had to be braced for this particular type of shock. It was going to happen sooner or later. My goodness, if the company I was working for was losing nearly $2 trillion per year,
Right.
I don't think I would be very confident about job security. That's
Right.
for sure.
Right.
So, this is a wake-up call. It brings people back to reality that there has to be adjustments made with government spending so that we are no longer borrowing at such a pace that in the not too distant future, just meeting the interest cost on federal debt that now approach $1 trillion would have the effect of, basically crippling federal government finances and in turn doing immense damage to the U.S. financial markets as well as the U.S. economy.
John, there's a reason I use Jamie Dimon. I don't like the guy, but he does a very good job. He's very good at his job, and there's a reason why he's been there for so long. And it's not because he's running a deficit every year for J.P. Morgan Chase. It's literally mind-blowing to me. I want to take a quick break here. When we come back, I want to go a little bit further into these tariffs, the long game on them. Do they actually stick? Where we go with them? And then I want to go into, are we in a recession? Are we entering a recession? Have we already entered a recession? Because I think that's something the audience is very nervous about. They look at their 401ks and they see they're down the tubes. How much longer can we expect this to happen? And what the end game is here. We're coming right back with John Lonski. He's the CEO of the Lonski Group. Stay with us.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Folks, we're back with John Lonski. He's the CEO of the Lonski Group. Our chief economist here for the Great America Show. I think it's safe to say he's the only one we trust with the news. And, it's easy, John. When we have one person, if you're wrong, they can't say, we're wrong about everything. It's only one person. I want to get to tariffs. Scott Bessent had this to say about President Trump's last week about President Trump's use of tariffs. Take a listen.
President Trump uses tariffs, unlike any president in modern times. And we think about it 3 ways. 1 can be revenues for the government. 2 can be to make trade fair, because a lot of our trading partners do not treat us fairly. And 3, President Trump uses them for negotiating, as he did with Colombia, as you're seeing with Mexico, with Canada, with the fentanyl crisis that we're having. So there's a chance that the tariffs could bring in a substantial amount of revenue for the government. So, for instance, a 10% global tariff would bring in $2.5 trillion over 10 years.
Imagine that, John. The American government bringing in money and not dishing it out. So 3 things he laid out there for President Trump's use of tariffs. Negotiating. He's using them right now to negotiate with Canada and Mexico to stop the migrant flow of illegal immigrants and drugs. Trade deficits, which we have with almost every single country, I think, on planet Earth, and revenue growth. The last one, I think, is key because Joe Biden didn't get rid of his tariffs that he put on China. Why? If tariffs are so bad, why didn't he get rid of them?
Well, Biden realized that China deserved tariffs, given the fact in part that, they've been exporting fentanyl to Mexico, then eventually makes its way into the United States. I mean, Trump is using tariffs, I think, largely as a negotiating tool early on. And it's conceivable that when Trump begins to look more closely at reciprocity, that is trying to level the tariff playing field. For example, if Europeans impose a 100% tariff on exports of light trucks from the United States, then perhaps we should increase some tariff on European exports to the U.S. to try to get Europe to lower the tariff that they impose on U.S. exports to Europe. That'd be a great thing. It's conceivable that this effort to lift tariffs in the United States might eventually lead to widespread reductions in tariffs if other countries open up their markets to production from the United States.
Right.
It's a complicated process, but European consumer would be better off if they could go ahead and purchase one of those nice SUVs, light trucks manufactured in the U.S. I mean, we probably, there are, again, European companies like I think BMW that manufactures automobiles, other types of vehicles in the Carolinas. Why not export some of those to Europe if they could lower the tariffs that are now imposed on such exports?
John, the way I see it is America's been taken advantage of for so long that nobody even realizes. The average person doesn't realize what the economy, how it works, what it looks like, and that's to no fault of their own. We don't teach it in our schooling system. You're brought through schooling systems not learning what an economy is, not learning what economics is. I didn't take my first economics class until college. That's not a way you should be raising your country. You should be teaching these kids early on the fiscal responsibilities and what economics is and how important it is in society, John. So the way I look at it is we've been silently tortured for a very long time from all these countries. They have tariffs on us, and we don't have anything on them. President Trump's just a little bit more robust about how he goes about doing things. He does it in the public domain. He lets the American people know. He's very transparent. This is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. Yet we're getting blowback for putting the same amount of tariffs on these countries that are tariffing us. It's almost like these people who are against it are anti-American.
It's not only a question of tariffs. Consider China with that country's production of what are now very cheap electric vehicles. So one of the reasons why the EVs in China are so cheap is because of heavy government subsidies. So we also have to take that into consideration when we're trying to come up with an effective tariff policy. But, John, you made a very important point, and that is, I think, the Trump administration would be, they'd get a boost if they went ahead and explained to the American people why it is that the international trade has become an unlevel playing field for the United States, why U.S. producers are put at such a disadvantage. Maybe you need a half dozen examples and use that to explain to the American people what the Trump administration is trying to do by supplying U.S. manufacturers, U.S. producers with this level playing field in international trade.
Yeah. You brought up a very, very good point, and it's about China being able to produce things so much cheaper than us. I was at a funeral last week, and I saw a close family friend who's retired down to the Dominican Republic because he simply can't afford to retire up here. He built a beautiful home, John, for $290,000, fully furnished. Beautiful. I asked him, I said, did you buy a car? He goes, yeah. I said, what'd you bring? Did you bring a car down there? Or did you buy one? He goes, I bought this Chinese thing. He said, why would you buy a Chinese car? He goes, it was $29,000 fully loaded out to the brim. And you know why they're able to do that, John? And it's things that only Donald Trump is talking about. What people don't realize is, it's like bringing a DJ in to DJ a wedding, right? He charges you $15,000, but it's not really costing him anything. It's costing him his time and his expertise. Research and development. It's probably the most expensive thing you could do in a product. I was looking recently at golf clubs, and I said, why the hell are drivers $450? I look up the cost of a driver, John, to actually manufacture. It's about $5 or $6. An iron's about $5 or $6. A driver's about $10. It's that research and development through the engineers and these technologists who make these things possible. China steals them. So, of course, they're able to undercut us on every single thing we do. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and how do you go ahead and capture that, if you like, stolen intellectual property from the United States?
Right.
In the case of EVs and other nascent developing industries, I think we perhaps have an argument to have some sort of protection from foreign competition over the near term. Another factor we want to consider that we haven't mentioned yet, and that is national security. I mean, does it make any sense for the United States to be overly dependent on imports for pharmaceuticals, to be overly dependent on imports of steel, of aluminum, other industrial materials, never mind rare earth metals and so on? I don't think it does. So we have to establish some sort of strategy to help assure that the U.S. has adequate production capacity in the event of a national emergency, especially a war, that would deny the United States access to these badly needed materials from overseas.
Oh, you mean like masks and gowns from China and pharmaceuticals that we weren't able to get during the China virus, John? Before we get into, I want to take up the recession talk on the other side of this quick break. But before we get there, I'll tell you what my one issue is with President Trump and the tariffs. I think what he's done with the tariffs is a great idea. China and Mexico need to stop the flow of drugs and migrants into this country. It's very, very simple. I don't agree with the way he's done it. He's put them on, he's taken them off. He's put them on, he's taken them off. That's created, I think, more instability in the markets than perhaps anything else. They're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. If you're going to put them on and leave them on. The market will take its hit. In my opinion, the market will recover, I think, historically. But by taking them on, putting them off, saying, this is only tariffed on this is only tariffed on that, where reciprocal trades are going in, tariffs are going in this time, your automobiles aren't tariffed, this isn't tariffed. I think these nations look at us and say, well, why are we even going to take you seriously in the first place when you've put them on 3 or 4 times and you can't leave them on? That's my only beef with him on the tariffs. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it is a mess. And it's almost as if Trump should have other spokespeople on this matter related to tariffs, besides just himself, appoint somebody in charge and come up with a clear-cut strategy. You know, you could use a surgeon's scalpel when looking at the tariff issue. You don't have to be ham-handed with tariffs and just apply a 10% or 15%, 20% tariffs to all imports from a specific country or a certain set of countries. So look at it that way. But if you keep changing your mind, if there's all of this uncertainty surrounding the outlook for tariffs will lead to reduced capital spending in the United States. It's going to lead to reduced hiring and reduced consumer spending. My goodness, if I begin to sense that tariffs are pushing the price of an auto higher, and that increase in price may only be temporary because tariffs will eventually have to be rescinded, why should I buy the auto? So it's a confusing situation, and neither the consumer nor businesses like heightened uncertainty.
Yeah, I think if he would have put them on when he said he was going to, February 1st, I think everything would have bled out by now. The truth of the matter is I don't think Canada can last very long with them on. I don't think Mexico can last very long with them on. So if he would have put them on February 1st, as he said, we're now at March 10th here, I think it would have probably figured itself out by now, and a deal would have been made between Mexico and Canada. Your thoughts before we go to a quick break?
Well, my thought is you have to really think this through clearly, because ever since tariffs became an issue towards the end of January, I think since then, a stock price index for the auto industry, when I last looked, was down by 30%. Let's not forget that the production of automobiles in the United States is very interdependent on cross-border production. Okay, a lot of parts are sent into Canada, they come back to the United States, back and forth, likewise with Mexico. So you have to be extremely careful as to how you handle the imposition of tariffs on certain goods, certain materials. Right. It could be, and what will happen, unfortunately, is that if you have this, a 20% tariff placed on imports from Canada, then the Korean automakers, my goodness, Hyundai, Kia, boy, they have a golden opportunity to seize market share in the United States. as the prices of autos from the big three automakers increase significantly, perhaps by 25%. This thing has to be well thought out. Quit rushing into matters, sit back, do the analysis, and then come up with the best strategic application of tariffs. Haste can make waste. Haste can do more damage than waste certain times.
Oh man, that's what my grandmother used to tell me. Haste makes waste. It's a famous quote, John. I want to take a quick break here. I want to come back with you. I want to talk about a little bit of a recession and what we could expect. I think that's what the audience all wants to know. America wants to know what we could expect on an economic outlook from you. We're coming right back with John Lonski, folks. Stay with us.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Folks, we're back with John Lonski. He's the CEO of the Lonski Group. John, before we get to the whole recession talk that the mainstream media wants so bad, when can we expect, do you think, in your opinion, whether it be Canada bleed out or Mexico bleed out, this tariff situation to be settled one way or another, whether they're on or they're off? Is it a 1-month thing? Is it a 3-month thing? Is it a 6-month thing? Is this a year-long thing?
Well, if we're looking at an equity market that is down by 15% from its latest high that was set not too long ago, back in February, I think you're going to see a continued postponement of tariffs. And perhaps at some point, this whole plan might be quietly shelved somehow in order to restore stability to U.S. financial markets.
Yeah.
Be perfectly frank with you, Mr. Market is a very powerful fellow. And I think Mr. Market in the end can be more powerful than Jerome Powell as well as Donald Trump. And if the equity market continues to sink as it has of late, I'm pretty sure that Trump, who's a champion of common sense, will heed the message of Mr. Market and pull back on his tariff strategy or revise it somehow and just suffer the consequences. It may end up being his version of the Bay of Pigs. But still, President John F. Kennedy was admired.
Yeah.
Now, you were asking about a recession. You want me to go there and talk about
real quick before we get there, because you brought up a very, very good point. And we haven't had a rate cut from Jerome Powell. He says he wants to wait to see, what Donald Trump's trade policy is and what the deal is. We're not even baking that in the cake. If this thing continues to go where it's going, we're almost guaranteed to get a rate cut. Is that correct?
I think right now that's the market's assessment. The rate cut should be here by June. But that may be too little too late. One of the problems you have right now is that just as spending is decelerating, for reasons I think that extend beyond tariffs and DOGE, we find that inflation is gaining speed.
Yeah.
Boy, this is somewhat similar to what happened at the start of the 2008-2009 recession. If you recall, price inflation was taking off in that first half of 2008, and of course would quickly subside once recession took hold and consumer spending dropped. So the Federal Reserve is in a very difficult situation. They recognize the economy is slowing, but at the same time, they continue to see prices rising. That being said, I think in the end that the Fed will take its cue from a slowing economy and go ahead and cut rates by the middle of this year, even if inflation is rising.
Yeah. You know, John, I just have something up here. Household debt has hit $18 trillion, up $93 billion for the first quarter of this year. So that's something to look at. Older Americans, too, according to the AARP. AARP found that 47% of adults age 50 and up who carry credit card debt are using their credit card to pay for basic living expenses like food, housing, utilities. Credit card balances are through the roof. Banks are taking advantage of people. APRs are 30% now. It's unbelievable. It's almost unaffordable for people to even use their credit cards. You've got everyone wants to talk about the egg crisis. Nobody wants to talk about Joe Biden ordering the chickens to be killed before he left office, driving this damn thing through the roof. All of this, I think, is a key indicator that points towards what you said, a recession. Now, I want to get your take on this because my father, who was a chief financial officer for a very large bank for a very long time, always used to tell me, John, a recession isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. It weeds out some of the weaker links that are needed in order to build up a stronger, more robust economy. And you don't have an overall, necessarily, most times you don't, recession where everything goes. It's either usually a market or it's a housing market or it's a stock market, whatever it may be. Your thoughts first on what my father used to tell me all the time about a recession not always being the worst thing.
Well, you know, John, recessions have also been referred to as corrections. So we're a recession. We go through a drop in domestic spending. We go through an increase in unemployment. Right. But in the end, we end up with an improved allocation of resources. We end up with creating new opportunities in new industries for people that lost their jobs or didn't have jobs previously. Right. And I would think that the next recession that could happen later this year would have the effect of finally bringing an end to our ongoing problems with price inflation. It might be that at long last, food becomes less unaffordable, put it that way. I would also think that we're going to see a deep drop by borrowing costs, especially mortgage yields. You know, part and parcel of a recession may be lower home prices, but the combination of lower home prices, lower mortgage yields, and the eventual restoration of healthy jobs growth would make homes affordable for first-time home buyers once again. Yeah. When Reagan took office in January of 1981, it was in August of 1981 that was then the worst recession since the Great Depression that got started. And that 81-82 recession was very painful. It had a steep jump by the unemployment rate, loss of a lot of jobs. It created a lot of problems in the manufacturing industry, created problems with real estate. But we pulled out of that recession in great shape. Right. 1983, 1984 were years of robust economic growth and a rate of inflation that was well under what held prior to the 1982 recession. And what happened is that Ronald Reagan in the 84 presidential election won by a massive landslide. He totally demolished, I think it was Walter Mondale in that particular presidential election. So Americans got over that, the 81-82 recession very quickly because that recession served as a great correction that put the U.S. economy on a path of sustainable, non-inflationary growth.
You know, John, I'm not just saying this because Donald Trump's the president. In the last segment, I had plenty of criticisms about him, about how he's handling the tariff situation. But I don't see another way out, and correct me if I'm wrong, And I'm not just saying it's because Trump's the president. If Biden were the president, it would say the same thing. He made plenty of his own mistakes. I mean, spending money like it was absolutely nobody's business. But I don't see any other way out, John, from this high inflation, from food costs. I mean, you've got on top of the inflation, John, you've got restaurants and everybody price gouging. You go out to a restaurant here in New York City, John, $18 for a Caesar salad. There's no way to justify that. You go to the grocery store, you go to Costco, and you get 5 heads of romaine for $5. Prices have went up, John, but they haven't went up that much where you can justify $15 for a Caesar salad or $20 for a Caesar salad when you have illegals working in your kitchen. So there's no way to justify that, in my opinion. What would you identify as the number one catalyst if we were to enter this recession that you talk about? If we're in this recession you talk about, what would you identify as the number one catalyst? Inflation?
Inflation, and I would go back to what I stated earlier. We have a more restrictive fiscal policy. Okay, tariffs represent higher taxes. You couple that with cutbacks in government spending, combined with an already restrictive monetary policy. That's why you slip into a recession. And moreover, middle income and lower income consumers have been financially stressed for some time. And it very well may be that this latest upturn by prices that you referred to, those higher prices can also be found in grocery stores today. I think that this may finally be the development that breaks the back of the U.S. consumer. They say enough is enough, and you will see perhaps fairly soon a broad-based pullback in consumer spending that pushes the U.S. economy into a recession that I would like to call a correction. It's long overdue. There's other problems, too, with the Biden administration and the progressive Democrats. And that is, these guys, they frowned upon the work ethic. They said, only a fool works hard. You're not going to get any place because AI is going to knock you off. Why don't you just take it easy, work remotely, worry more about your vacation than getting ahead at work, getting ahead in your career. That attitude has got to change. And thank goodness with somebody like Trump in office, we are going to have a meaningful improvement in the attitude that Americans have towards work. And without the proper attitude, you are never going to obtain those aptitudes that you need to succeed in life.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm not cheering for a recession. I don't want one. I look at my 401ks and my IRAs every day, John, where I'm heavily invested in oils and gas and petroleum companies and blue chips. And I'm sitting there like this. But you know what? It's a long road, and it's not something that's done overnight. It's not something that's done over in a 3-month period. I think you've got to give Trump a year long to prove himself. I don't think you'd give him 6 months. I think you give him a year. And at the end of the year, if we're in a total mess, we'll come out and say things aren't looking good. Things aren't working out. But you can't gauge, John, in 2 months, 1 month, 3 months. You get the last words here. The floor is yours. I have one more question for you, and then the floor is yours. What can you tell all the folks who are in here who are elderly, who are retired, who look at their 401ks and their pension plans and are absolutely terrified, losing sleep over a night? Because there's a lot of people whose lives depend on that.
If you don't need the money right away, sit out the storm, ride out the storm. That's what I would suggest. We've seen this over time. The U.S. equity market may drop sharply. It could go down 40%, but ultimately it sets a new record high. So it may, unless you really need the cash, ride out the storm, especially if you have your portfolio is well diversified, and if you have exposure to a company or an industry that may be in long-term difficulty, you may want to get out. If you're in equities and you have a lot of consumer staples in your portfolio, some utilities, you have companies that have been able to grow dividends over time.
Right.
Sit tight and don't panic. I want to add one thing that's kind of interesting, though, talk about a recession. And that is, I worked in the corporate bond market for many years, for decades. And I can't help but notice that the difference between corporate bond yields and treasury bond yields, we call that a yield spread. That represents the perceived risk of corporates going into default is still historically low. So while at this point in time, you do see stock prices sinking, you have certain segments of the equity market in a correction. They're down by more than 10% from their latest high. You don't see that type of sell-off in the corporate bond market. Maybe that's encouraging. Maybe this is a storm that will blow over quickly enough. The fact that we have a relatively stable corporate bond market is telling me that corporate finances are still relatively strong. There's a lot of cash on hand. And this also holds true for the junk bond segment. So I'm kind of surprised. Maybe it won't last, but I would add that if you need the cash and you suddenly see those that difference between junk bond yields and treasury yields, now it's about 3 percentage points, rise well above 4 percentage points, approach 5 percentage points, then that tells you that a recession may already be here, and you've got to be braced for a deeper slide by equity prices.
And if you got the money, what's the saying, John? If there's blood in the water, go out and buy.
No, it's too early for that right now. You get that dividend, keep it in cash, don't put it back in the market. I would wait until you see the professionals re-enter the market. I would stay out of the market until you begin to see some sign of upward momentum, sustained upward momentum. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
By professionals, do you mean Dan Crenshaw and Nancy Pelosi?
No, come on. They haven't signed information.
Real quick, John, I know
they have that.
I know I said it was the last question, but I just want to ease the audience's nerves for just a little bit. From November 5th, when Donald Trump won the election, to today, the Dow is only down 310 points, less than 0.75%. The Nasdaq's actually up, and the S&P is only down 5%, 314 points. So it's not the end of the world. I know I said you get the last word. You get the last word here.
Okay, the last word would be that there's a good chance, a 50-50 chance, that we're going to have a recession take place in this country and start by the middle of this year. I would view that as a correction. I think that it's overdue. It's the only way that you're going to get rid of this tendency of inflation to reignite itself all too often. So if you want to go ahead and bring an end to this ongoing struggle with price inflation, and if you want to have it so this economy operates more efficiently, if you want to make progress at reducing the federal budget deficit, then there may be only one remedy, and that remedy would be a recession. But, we've had plenty of recessions in the past that were followed by very vibrant economic recoveries. And if we keep the government out of the economy, we will probably go through that same process again as we did in the 1980s.
John, thank you so much for joining us today. John Lonski is the CEO of the Lonski Group. We appreciate your words of wisdom through these tumultuous times in America.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thanks to John Lonski, and thank you all for being with us today here on the Great America Show. I thought it was very important to bring John on to try to ease the nerves of some of you folks and the American people about what's going on in the country right now. The honest truth, not what you're getting from the mainstream media, not what you're getting from tabloids online and external place of news. This is John Lonski, a brilliant man, a brilliant economist who says it just how it is. You heard it right from him, the man himself. Folks, we'll see you back here tomorrow for the Great America Show, we hope. Until then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.